record. Okay. So he pays a heavy price for it because he's terrified of seeing her and having her know that he has a stutter. And so he returns to the familiar situation, which when they were talking about it in the video, the familiar situation was him, you know, kind of going back to his because he's a typographer, going back to his office. Let me take a look at the chat. And so he finds out that she is very accepting, obviously, because she has her own internal struggle that she's overcome, which is the fact that she's deaf. And so she overcomes it, and she's willing to be brave and meet him. So that shows him that he, you know, he can be accepted for who he is too. So there's this whole story circle. And what I wanted to do with you all is go through that. So for you, what I'm gonna have you do is on a sheet of paper, I want you to set it up like this, where you draw a circle and you label each part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And what I did was I just drew a line, cutting it into quarters, and then another set of lines to cut it into eighths. And at each point, you're going to take your character's internal conflict and you're going to fill in each of these gaps. I want you to use this as a reference. So let me share my screen again. This is really hard to not be able to show the whiteboard and my screen at the same time. So you can save this this image if you want to, or you can, you know, just have your Chromebook open when you're writing it. But based on your internal conflict, I want you to fill out each portion of these. So what is it that your character wants that's centered around, that's hard for them to get because of their internal conflict? What is the unfamiliar situation that they're going to enter into? How are they going to adapt to it? How do they get what they wanted? What is the heavy price that they pay? What is the familiar situation that they return to having changed? So numbers 7 and 8, I know that part can probably be confusing, but they go together. So what's the heavy price that they pay for getting what they wanted? And then after they pay the heavy price, how do they return to their familiar situation changed? So for our character, he was able to return to his normal life, changed because he realized that Ellie, the girl that he was meeting, would accept him for who he is. So now he's able to accept himself. So this part will take a little bit of time. And that's what I want us to focus on for today. But do any of you have questions about that? Because I feel like I just kind of threw it at you. And I can't see your faces to know if you're like, what is she talking about or not? Any questions about that? No? Okay. All right, so if it doesn't make sense at all, or you don't like that structure, that's totally fine with me. I just want you to flesh out the main parts of the film itself. Because remember, when I first started talking about filmmaking, you have the beginning, where you set up the audience. Who's the character? Where do they live? You visually show where they live. You visually show what kind of problem they're dealing with. And then you build up to the climax, which is where they have the actual conflict, the actual fight, or whatever it is. And there's the resolution. And then you kind of show what their life is like afterwards. And this is very similar to that structure, but I think it's like more clear for you to be able to answer each one of these parts, and it builds that structure. So yes, so you just have to fill it in based off of your character and your internal conflict and how you want them to resolve that. So what is the heavy price he had to pay? So the heavy price he had to pay was to get out of his comfort zone, to be able to meet Ellie. And he was terrified to go and meet her because he was afraid that she wouldn't want to be with him because of his stutter. So he had to overcome that fear and get outside of his comfort zone. And that's really hard for a lot of us, right? So that was the heavy price he had to pay. So the other thing that I forgot to mention, I had you all working on an internal conflict. So the external conflict would be like right here. Let me share my screen again. So the external conflict is the price that your character has to pay for what they want. So, you know, for example, I don't know, in the last Batman movie, Batman takes the bomb all the way out to sea and it explodes and everyone thinks that he died, but he didn't really. And so the price that he paid for being able to live out a normal life, not as Batman anymore, is to make everyone believe that he's dead and he can't go back to his life of crime fighting. So he had to pay the price of not being that person anymore in order to get what he really wanted, which was to have a normal life. I always talk about Batman just because I love those movies, but by the way, not Christian Bale, who was the guy that played Edward in Twilight? Robert Pattinson. He is playing as the new Batman for the new Batman movie, and it actually looks really, really good. I'm excited for that, but that was a tangent. So, number 6, what is the heavy price, AKA external conflict, that like comes to a head? So that's kind of like the climax portion. Okay, any other questions? Oops, I didn't mean to stop video. I meant to stop sharing my screen. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen, okay. Yeah. Okay, so if you haven't already, please finish part 1, which is developing the internal conflict of your character, and then do this. How I expect you to turn this in is what you can do is you can make a graphic like this, or if you prefer just numbering it out on the page and having like a few sentences per number, that's totally fine with me too. So if you wanted to do it like this instead, where you have the page and label it 1, 2, 3, and so on, and then just write it out. You can do it that way too. I totally don't mind. You probably can't see that, can you? Because I didn't write very dark. But yeah, so that's the next part. We're not gonna have to go as in depth like this on each film. I just really want to make sure that we understand that creating a film that's really interesting and it has layers and your characters are interesting and well developed, you really do need to follow this structure, just because it's easy to leave out important parts that your audience needs in order to like fully understand your story. And if you don't include those parts, if you don't include what is the character overcoming, what makes your character complex, how do they overcome their problem, then your audience is going to be like, okay, I'm out, like I don't want to watch this. So that's why we're spending a lot of time on this. And after we do this, we're not going to have to, because I see that you understand how to do it. Okay, I'm going to stop talking at you. This is early in the morning, I get it. But if you do have any issues with this, please let me know. From what I've seen, you guys are just so great at this. Storytelling is your jam. And I personally cannot wait to see what you make, just because it looks like your internal conflicts look awesome. But yeah. Okay, so if you have no other questions, if you get what's going on, then go ahead, hop off of Zoom, and then I will chat with you tomorrow for a check-in. Otherwise, yeah, have fun. Have fun with your characters. All right, bye everyone. You're welcome. Bye.